The only thing that can really stop Putin in Ukraine and in Europe, this is a resistance that is being produced by Ukrainian military, by all Ukrainian people that heroically resisting this aggression.
Okay, so beyond oil and gas, he thinks there should be more. What do you say?
Well, I think we should do everything possible. And again, I commend the heroism, the courage of the people of Ukraine and their president as well. I really think the European Union has to lead on this. I think they're closer to the situation there. I think that they need to be doing everything that they can be doing. I know that we have, 90 or 100,000 American troops in Europe right now, forming a NATO alliance force. We don't want any American boots on the ground there in Ukraine. But I still think, I know you said anything but oil and gas. But look, 50% of the economy in Russia is driven by oil and gas, by energy exports. We can shut off that war machine if Europe and United States come together and stop importing any energy from Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, I do want to pick up on that because you have been leading on this. You've been talking about banning U.S. imports of Russian oil. But the Biden administration has been clear. Jen Psaki said it, that they don't see this as something that they can get behind. Here's what I don't get. I think that what you're proposing makes total sense, right? We should be more energy independent. We shouldn't be letting them profit from it. Is there any logical reason for their position and their opposition to what you're trying to do? Because I just can't figure it out. I don't understand why they are being so hell-bent on sticking with Russian oil.
Yeah, well, Sean, I think, first of all, they would have to admit that they're wrong. And as you know, Joe Biden's not going to take any responsibility. So they have to admit that they're wrong, that energy independence is very, very important. And there will be some short-term pain for Americans. I understand that. And unfortunately, Joe Biden has driven the price of gasoline up to the pump almost, 60 or 70% higher than it was when he took office. And now to throw another 50 cents on top of that, it'll be short-term pain, but long-term gain, not just for the price at the pump, but to win this war as well. We need American energy independence.
I agree.
Senator, I do want to switch gears with you because yesterday the Senate passed a resolution that you introduced to end the national COVID emergency declaration. Now this has to be still brought to the floor. We'll see if Nancy Pelosi does that. Biden says he's going to veto it if the House passes it. But walk our audience through what this would actually change.
Well, I think you're talking about the COVID declaration of emergency. And what it would change, I think, is just America turning the corner. Look, 60, 70% of Americans are just ready to turn the page. So I think that this would be a moral victory most of all. And you heard President Biden at the State of the Union say, look, he's ready to turn the page, something to that effect, but his actions aren't lining up with that. What this does is it takes power out of his hands and Dr. Fauci's hand. You know, as I talked about this famous painting in the rotunda of President Washington declining a crown, he throws off his robes and the throne is empty. So Joe Biden needs to come off his throne. He needs to throw the robes of the king off and let Americans have their energy independence back, their day-to-day life back. I was in Sling, Kansas today greeting some truckers that are on their way to Washington, D.C. to protest, to practice their First Amendment rights. I saw what freedom looked like and just how important freedom is to Americans.
You had me at Fauci, just so you know.
Senator Roger Marshall, always appreciate your time. Good to see you, sir.
Great to see you all. Thanks.